You're live on News at Prime. We're in conversation with gender activists tonight. Of course, it comes less than an hour after President Cyril Ramaphosa has given his address to the nation when it comes to what government is going to be doing to deal with the scourge of gender-based violence. Nkeletseng Tsetsane is from Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence. Lindelwe Ngumalo from ActionAid South Africa. Lisa Vetten is a gender activist and researcher with Wits University. Rosie Mutene, also a feminist author and board member of Power, and Lebo Ramofoko from the Soul City Institute. So the only thing that I wanted to ask about was this idea of colluding with patriarchy. What does it mean when we say that women every day find themselves in a position where they're colluding with patriarchy, but every once in a while that can has to blow open?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, we were all socialized in a patriarchal society. So for many of us, there's a lot of unlearning we had to go through and understand that it is a system because it is so pervasive. So examples of why you collude. There's colluding that is deliberate. I have seen, even in this past week with Uyinene, some people, because she's young, she's attractive, including women, saying she must have run away with, some were even saying a Nigerian man. And it came from men and women, okay? Older men, older women as well. And it's because they basically are what I would call patriarchal princesses. For them, this is what women do. And if, if Lisa says...
line out of the patriarchal norm.
Exactly.
This is what will happen, yeah.
But sometimes you collude even when you are a feminist, because in fact, if you were to fight every day, it would be difficult. For an example, you go to a family event, you go to a funeral, and you basically just... you know that some of the things that are expected of men, some of the things that are expected of women are not fair, the division of labor. You may know that in your family there is somebody who is very abusive to their wives, but you keep quiet, not because you condone, but in fact it's tiring to fight. In fact, some of us may even be labeled in our family. So there are days you make a calculated move to be saying, you know what, in fact, I cannot be on fighting every day.
And also sometimes it's a case of safety. So you're at home, if you do collude, then where are you going to sleep for the night? Where, are you going to be accepted or appreciated within the family realm? So it's incredibly, incredibly tricky.
What does that do then for what women are constantly told to speak up? One of the things that drew quite a backlash this week was that tweet by the presidency that said, women must speak up and report rape, don't suffer in silence. And people responded quite harshly to that, saying, well, actually, women have been speaking up.
But
I think the problem with that, specifically that statement, is that even with the kids, with the girls, raising them, we keep saying, don't get raped. And this is when we say we need to start changing the message. We need to teach the boys not to rape. So when you say women must speak up, instead of telling men not to rape, so that, for me, that was the problem. That why must we speak up? Why must it happen? Tell them not to do it.
But also with the government saying, please speak up, what measures have you put in, concrete measures, safe measures, have you put in place for us when we do speak up, what's going to happen? You look at the case with Nene. If, for instance, sexual offenders were put onto a public role that we knew about it, this could have been avoided because he already was a sexual offender. He was on one that was on a private, and now I heard when I was driving here, was that the president is thinking of making that public. It should have been made public a long time ago.
But you see the issue exactly shows just how tone deaf our messaging is, because it places the burden on women over and over again. It could not even speak, like it was so shrouded in, like you read it and you want to say, what? Like, are you asleep? Are you awake? Are you pretending to be deaf, or are you really deaf with this message? But again and again, because we don't have a responsive government, and they must just get off Twitter. That's how they react.
What difference would making that register public?
I don't think that much. I know people are very fond of registers. I think if you look at the research that's been done elsewhere in the world, nothing. And they've had, no, they make very little difference. They've had them in the UK and the US. They do very little. And part of the problem is the fact that and it's, I think, some of the problems with the conversation right now. Let's have harsh sentences. Let's not give parole. I'm sorry, if there's a 6% conviction rate, you're talking about the minority. Move away from harsh sentencing and sex offender registers, and let's talk about the start in the process. Why are there so few arrests? And why do the police do such a bad job of investigating stranger rape, for example? They do a much better job when you know them because it's less work. I can give you a name. Our quality of investigation in stranger rape is concerningly bad. So you lose a whole lot of those cases at that point. That's who's doing a lot of that's where a lot of your trouble sits. Then there's the quality of investigation itself. Then it's getting it to court. Then it's the quality of the prosecution. So there's a whole lot of work that's got to happen to produce that 6%. So please, let's forget, 6% is important, but let's focus on the 94% and try and fix that up. And I think our response, and it's quite knee-jerk, is to look at harsh sentencing, no parole, whereas actually we've got to go move upstream and look at what's going wrong there and take steps there around quality of police investigation and the like.
So it sounds to me that the criminal justice system then would be crucial in really being able to help when it comes to mitigating gender-based violence.
Well, it is, but it comes after the fact, okay? So we need to ask ourselves, and that goes beyond government. So while as a society we can point fingers at government, we actually need, we need to say to South African men, dear men, we need to talk, because some of the problems is that the people who are saying not in my name, the people who are acting shocked right now, have demonstrated social norms that make many rape perpetrators to thrive because there are no consequences, there are no social consequences. And the language that men pat themselves on the back around their relationship with women, whether they are strangers, whether they are cousins, whether they are the women they marry or the women they date, is that barbaric. And it has become normal. So on one level, it's very easy also to put a finger at government, but in fact, we've got social norms that perpetuate a big problem.
So then, Lynn, how do we change the language, and what preventative steps need and can be put in place?
Wow, that's a very easy question. The normalization of violence is also is one of the roots of where we find ourselves. But also, something that, I think would also be an additional question is, how do we interrogate the different systems that intersect and support each other to create what we have now? Research tells us that gender-based violence is a direct result of gender inequality in a country. At the same time, the economic systems that we employ are also supportive of that very system. At the same time, our religious institutions, our schooling institutions, and our systems are all working together, right? And so it almost requires of us, a mammoth task. But if we're looking for transformation and truly to see how we can begin to change this, it does start with conversation. One of the things we talk about often is rape culture, which freaks people out, But exactly what's going on Twitter. If it's easy for me to say, look at that girl, what exactly am I saying, And how does that not easily shift? Because my peers are supporting me, right? My peers are like, hey, get tails on taller, you know what I'm saying? And my peers are encouraging me, they're building my story. That doesn't take long for that to cross over into an action. That is accepted, that isn't shocked. And unfortunately, in our country, we live in a country where, it's so normalized that we are actually numb. That we in stories shock us and wake us up again, but really, for those of us who work in the sector, it's a day-to-day painful conversation, and sometimes
it doesn't even shock us, it brings us down to a lull.
It brings us down. It brings
another one,
But I think also as we talk about how we can deal with it, one thing that I've noticed that we do is we leave out business out of this. It's always the government, we look at the religious sector, we're looking at institutions, but government, private sector, corporate is sitting there silently in a corner as if this is a government problem, which is not, So I think we should also start looking at how do we now hold them accountable? How do we hit them where it hurts, you know, because the only thing that I know would hurt them is when you touch the economy. How do we do that so that they can actually come around and sit at a table and say, okay, now what?
Right. And absolutely.
You know, but there are certain elements of corporate that are stepping forward and not doing the window dressing, and suddenly there's a ladies' tea on during August month and things like that, you know. And Power have just entered into this three-year contract with the international corporate who, for the last year and a half, we've been working on elements of where they could add value, but not overstepping the work that we're all doing, you know. So I think it's those big corporates that are stepping forward that I think will be almost like a shining light for other people to step
But
forward.
I wonder, does that ease the response to sexual harassment, especially one that takes place within the work environment, the workspace? Because within Women's Month, I'll tell you what, we had many women in your seats who said, actually, there's a lot of harassment that takes place in the workspace. But many women have to go in silence because people are trying to protect their careers. They don't want to be seen as those people who basically, are problematic. Lisa?
No, I think so. And I mean, it's so hard. If there's one problem you cannot get statistics for in South Africa, it's sexual harassment. You talk to the CCMA and you talk to the Labour Court, there are very, very, very few cases that come through. And in some instances, you know, if it goes to arbitration, those records are sealed. You do not know what's going on. So I think the corporate sector has been incredibly successful in privatising and keeping private, literally, the problems of violence within the workplace. So, and most women don't speak out, they leave. Because
Or
you
they
don't
fire them.
Yeah, because you don't have the money to go to the Labour Court. You don't have the money to pursue all this. And it's tiring. And you find that workplaces split and become polarised and people take sides against you. Easier to ask for a transfer or to move on.
I want us to continue this conversation after a short break, and I think we really need to then go deep onto the issue of how people in corporate spaces, in work spaces really can start drawing attention to part of what's happening behind the scenes, and of course plenty more other themes that my panelists, I'll tell you, will want to explore. It looks like we're going to get to 8 o'clock with this conversation. And so we're going to take a short break. You're live on News and Prime. After this, we'll recap the day's top stories and we'll continue with this chat.